In April 2022, the Chinese ambassador to Tanzania expressed the hope that the Tanzanian government and investors would restart the Bagamoyo Port project. Bagamoyo Port is an important port on the east coast of Tanzania facing the Indian Ocean. As early as 2013, Chinese leaders signed a cooperation agreement with Tanzania to jointly develop the Bagamoyo Port project. The two countries immediately started preparations and planned to invest $10 billion to build the port. Chinese engineering and technical personnel and infrastructure equipment were already prepared, but Tanzania unexpectedly broke the agreement and refused to cooperate with China, disregarding the long-term friendship between the two countries. The project was delayed for more than 8 years, and now Tanzania shamelessly seeks China's help again. Although Tanzania breached the agreement first, China expressed its willingness to restart the project. So, why did Tanzania want to develop this project with China in the first place? And why did it change its mind midway? Why did China agree to cooperate despite Tanzania's breach of faith? To answer these questions, we need to go back to the history of the two countries in the last century. In today's video, let's talk about this story. On February 17, 1965, Julius Cambridge Nyerere, the then president of Tanzania, arrived in Beijing with a speculative and anxious mood. The reason why Nyerere was so nervous during his visit to China was that he was about to make an extremely unreasonable request to the new China, hoping that China could assist Tanzania in building a railway connecting Tanzania and Zambia. Tanzania is a country in Eastern Africa and is still recognized as one of the most underdeveloped countries in the world. To build the Tanzania-Zambia Railway, Nyerere tried everything to seek help from countries around the world. At first, Nyerere approached wealthy, technologically advanced, and industrialized European and American countries, but they all believed that Africa's geographic environment was too harsh and refused to spend the time and energy required. They all rejected his request outright. Helpless, the Tanzanian government had to turn to the World Bank for a loan to raise funds. However, the World Bank believed that Tanzania was too poor and had no ability to repay the debt, so it rejected their request as well. The reason why the Tanzanian government persisted in building this railway was to allow Zambia's copper mines to be transported by train to the port for export overseas, thereby promoting local economic development in Tanzania. But being repeatedly rejected hit Nyerere hard, so he turned to China. To his surprise, war-torn China agreed to the request. This move also won the favor of African countries. After the start of construction of the Tanzania-Zambia Railway, China returned to the United Nations with the help of African countries. The Tanzania-Zambia Railway is the first railway built by China overseas, with a total length of 1,860.5 kilometers. It connects East Africa and Central and South Africa, linking Zambia's New Kaparimposhi in the west to Tanzania's capital Dar es Salaam in the east. To build this railway, the Chinese government provided a non-interest loan of 988 million yuan to the Tanzanian government and dispatched 56,000 engineering and technical management personnel. At its peak, there were 16,000 Chinese personnel working on site. Subsequently, to ensure the normal operation of the railway, China continued to provide non-interest loans, technical cooperation assistance, and dispatched experts and technical personnel to participate in management or provide consultation. During this period, nearly 70 Chinese personnel sacrificed their lives on this railway and completed this world-shaking infrastructure miracle. The Tanzania-Zambia Railway greatly improved the economic development of Tanzania and Zambia, making Zambia, an inland country, not only an exporter of copper resources but also making the travel of the two countries' people more reliable and affordable. According to statistics, since the railway was built more than 40 years ago, the Tanzania-Zambia Railway has transported more than 30 million tons of goods and more than 40 million passengers, greatly promoting the prosperous development of Africa's economy. To this day, the Tanzania-Zambia Railway has been called the Road of Friendship and Road of Freedom by African people, and it is a monument witnessing the friendship between China and Africa for nearly 50 years. It was thought that the 50-year friendship between China and Tanzania could not be shaken, but the friendship was not worth mentioning in the face of interests. In order to further expand the country's export trade, Tanzania is preparing to build the largest port in Africa in Bagamoyo, which, once completed, will be able to connect China, Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. At that time, Tanzania could jump from a backward country to a developing country just by collecting transit fees from around the world. Naturally, such an important project falls on China, the most trusted friend of Tanzania. So, the 2013 project signing on port cooperation and development mentioned at the beginning came about. In order to build this port well, China spent a lot of manpower, material resources, and financial resources in the preparatory work. Just as Chinese personnel were about to bring the world's most advanced infrastructure equipment to Africa, Tanzania told China they didn't need to come. Because at this time, Tanzania had changed presidents, and the new president, Magufuli, was not satisfied with the cooperation between China and Tanzania. In 2015, 2 years after the signing of the Bagamoyo Port development project by China and Tanzania, Magufuli became the president of Tanzania. Unlike his predecessors who were friendly towards China, Magufuli openly criticized the unequal contract signed between the former president and China, stating that the Bagamoyo Port project would bring no benefit to Tanzania. Under the previous contract, the former leadership of Tanzania had promised to grant China the right to use Bagamoyo Port free of charge for 99 years as a token of appreciation for China's silent contribution over the past few decades. Magufuli announced that Tanzania would completely get rid of China's aid and rely on its own ability to complete the Bagamoyo Port project. As a result, Magufuli's hostile attitude towards China caused a crack in the 50-year friendship between China and Tanzania. However, not long after, the Tanzanian government suddenly reached out to China for help, claiming that they encountered new problems in the construction of the Bagamoyo Port. It turned out that in order to build the port, Tanzania needed to relocate residents around the port inland and properly resettle them, which was beyond their financial capacity. In order to ensure the progress of the port construction, Tanzania had to seek help from China. China intended to mend ties with Tanzania and offered to help them. Unexpectedly, just as China agreed to help, Tanzania backtracked again, and the mastermind behind this was Japan and the UK. Taking advantage of the rift between China and Tanzania, the UK and Japan took the initiative to propose to the Tanzanian government to help build the Bagamoyo port. Not only was it less expensive than China's proposal, but it also did not require the right to use the port. However, all of this came with a condition that Tanzania must terminate its cooperation with China. After Tanzania rejected cooperation with China, the true colors of the UK and Japan were revealed. Financial aid and infrastructure development were immediately thrown out of the window by the UK and Japan, who ignored Tanzania's pleas. Without China's aid, the Bagamoyo port project had to be put on hold and stagnated. This not only delayed economic development but also damaged their international reputation. In contrast, China, who had been reneged by Tanzania, turned to cooperate with Djibouti and the port project thrived, resulting in a win-win situation. With things as they were, the Tanzanian government could only once again turn to China and ask for forgiveness. Although Tanzania has changed its mind many times, China considers its poverty and the desire to make quick gains understandable. China has expressed willingness to continue cooperating with Tanzania. This cooperation will involve multiple projects in Tanzania, with the Bagamoyo port being a top priority. China also hopes to restart the project. Furthermore, in late last year, Tanzania's newly elected president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, visited China and met with Chinese and Tanzanian leaders in Beijing, where they reached a series of important consensuses on international and regional issues of mutual concern and trade cooperation. It can be seen that after years of misunderstanding and coolness, the friendly relationship between China and Tanzania is also warming up. Well, thanks for watching. If you have any suggestions, just leave them in the comments section. We'll come back as soon as possible and check them, and then we'll give feedback. See you next time.